As for Dandy, life was not bad. He met my grandmother while attending church on the south side and ultimately found work through the federal government's Works Progress Admin Administration, the relief program that hired unskilled laborers for public construction projects during the Depression. He then went on to spend 30 years as a postal work, worker before retiring with a pension that helped allow him all that time to yell at the boo-boos on TV from the comfort of his recliner. In the end, he had 5 kids who were as smart and dis- disciplined, disciplined as he was. Namely, his second child, who'd end up with a degree of Harvard Business School. Harvard. Andrew would go on to, to become a train conductor, and Carolyn became an engineer. Francesca worked as a creative director in advertising for a time, and eventually became a grade school teacher. But still Dandy would remain unable to see his children's accomplishments as any sort of extension of his, as we saw every Sunday arriving at Parkway Gardens for dinner. My grandfather lived with the bitter taste of his own dashed dreams. If my questions for Dandy were hard and unanswerable, I soon learned that many questions are just that way. In my own life, I was starting to encounter questions I couldn't easily answer. One came from a girl whose name I can't remember, one of the distant cousins who played with us in the backyard of one of my great aunt's houses farther west of us, as the adults drank coffee and laughed in the kitchen. Craig and I would join whatever pack of kids came with those adults. Sometimes it was awkward, all of us managing a forced friendship, but generally it worked out. Craig almost always disappeared into a basketball game. I'd jump double dutch or try to fall into whatever conversation was going on. One summer day, when I was about 10, I sat on a stoop chatting with a group of girls my age. We were all in pigtails and shorts, basically just killing time. What were we discussing? It could have been anything: school, our older brothers, and until on anthill on the ground. At one point, one of the girls gave me a sideways look and say just a touch hotly, "How come you talk like a white girl?" I could tell that she was trying to insult me, or at least challenge me, but that she was also curious to know why the two of us sounded different. We seemed to be related, but of two different worlds. I don't, I said, looking scandalized that she'd even suggested, and embarrassed by the way the other girls were now staring at me. But I knew what she was getting at. There was no denying it. Even if I just had, I did speak differently than some of my relatives, and so and so did Craig. Our parents had drilled into us the importance of using proper diction, of saying going instead of going, and isn't instead of ain't. We were taught to finish off our words. They bought us a dictionary and a full Encyclopedia Britannica set, which I left on a shelf in a stairwell to our apartment, its titles etched in gold. Any time we had a question about a word or concept or some piece of history, they directed to us toward those books. Dandy to us was an influence, correcting our grammar or ordering us to enu- enunciate our words when we went over for dinner. Dandy and my parents wanted us to have more opportunities than they had. They planned for it, they encouraged it. We were expected not just to be smart, but to own our smartness, to inhabit it with pride, and this filtered down to how we spoke. Yet it also could be a problem speaking a certain way, the white way, as some would have it, was seen as a betrayal, as being uppity, as somehow denying our culture. Years later, after I met and married my husband, a man who is light skinned to some and dark skinned to others, who speaks like a Ivy League educated black Hawaiian raised by white middle class Kansans, I'd seen this confusion play out on a national stage among white and blacks alike. I'd seen the need people have to define others by their ethnicity or the color of their skin. America would bring to Barack Obama the same questions my cousin was unconsciously putting to me, that they understood. Are you what you appear to be? Do I trust you or not? I passed the rest of that day trying to say less to my cousin, feeling put off by her hostility, but also wanting her to see me as genuine, not trying to show off some advantage. I was hard to know what to do. All all the while I could hear the sound of conversation going on between the adults in the kitchen nearby, my parents' laughter ringing easy and loud over the yard. I watched my brother in a flow of a sweetie game with a group of boys on the street corner. Everyone seemed to fit in except for me. I look back on the discomfort of that moment now and recognize the more universal challenge figuring out you how who you are fits with where you come from and where you want to go. I also realized that I was a long way still from finding the voice